It's good minutes. Between the minutes and watching, I watched on the TV
Oh.
again.
Ready? Good morning, or I'm sorry, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach. It is Thursday, May 18th, and I call this meeting to order at 3:01 p.m. Going to do a roll call vote, roll call. Christopher Galanti.
Present.
David Diefendorfer.
Here.
David Mann is absent. John Geiger.
Here?
Donna Maybury.
Here.
And the chair is here. We have a quorum and can conduct business today.
Here anymore?
Oh, I'm sorry. Elise Moore is also absent.
Oh,
Meeting minutes for the last meeting, April 20th, 2023, was sent out. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
And a second by Chris. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of April 20th, 2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the meeting minutes are approved. I've got no correspondence identified. I'm going to skip over the first agenda item regarding updates on various projects. I'm going to wait until if Kevin, the Public Works Director, arrives, I'll let him do that update. Next on the agenda is discussion and any action related to handicap and reserved parking spots at Grenoble Place related to elite physical therapy appointments. At the last meeting, we heard from the owner of Elite expressing their concern that they don't have enough reserved parking spots for their clients as well as handicap parking spots in that area. I asked for a little bit more research to be done on the legality of reserving handicap parking spots. And I'll let you, David, take it away from that front.
All right, so I was talking to Kevin Williams a lot about these parking spots. And the upshot is if we have two handicap spots there on Grenoble right now, and my discussions with Kevin were that if we took those spots and if the city took those spots and marked them specifically for elite, then they would have to replace those, the city would have to replace those handicap spots with two other handicap spots. So I looked at the area up there on Grenoble, and there's possibly a spot to create another one, but I'm sure that would have to be budgeted for. That first spot on the south side is a possibility. And then now that Kevin's here, I had a question. Instead of the two spots, and there's lots of rules about the ADA, about the streets and the corridors, et cetera. Instead of taking both of those spots and dedicating them to elite, Kevin, is it possible that we could take one of those spots and still be within the requirements of the ADA for the city? Yes.
So I think by our calculation for that block perimeter, the city is required to have one. So
Okay.
and how many are there? Two.
So two are there right now. They're on the north side where Kevin just pointed out.
For reference, this is handicap 1, handicap 2, reserved for, and there's one reserved for elite, reserved for elite, reserved for elite. So handicap, reserved.
Reserved for what?
and just for everyone's knowledge, the block perimeter is
Oh, they actually have one for that?
around the condos, the hotel, around back by the garage and in. It does not include the south side of Grenoble. So it's the contiguous block is where the numbers come into play.
Okay. So we're required to have one in that corridor. So if we took one and dedicated it to elite, then we'd still be within the rules of the ADA, and there'd be no violation. Is that right, Kevin? Okay. And would we have to create one eventually since we took that spot away, or you don't think we have to even? No, because we have enough other than that, right? So that would be my recommendation, because there's two there now, and we can get away with dedicating one to elite without causing any legalities, and then they're still paying parking for there as they're
What are
there.
their hours?
What are elite's hours?
Yeah. Are they have 24 hours?
No, it's a physical therapy's place, so they're open from.
I understand that.
John,
but I
John.
mean, when are they there?
And John, if you can just speak into the microphone.
So basically, they're open from 7 to 7, I believe, and then on Saturday, you have a little different hours, 8 to 12, 8 to 12 on Saturday.
But if you dedicate it, then nobody could be there after 7.
No, you would hang a sign that says they're dedicated to elite from 7 to 7.
Oh.
They still pay the meters. This was discussed last meeting, so they still pay the meters, but it would be open after 1900 hours, so someone else could park there and pay a meter, a handicapped person. So that would be that's a recommendation from me. I don't know whether anybody else has any other ideas.
Do you want to come up and say a few words? And just identify yourself when you come up.
My name is Amelia Kinar, and I own Elite Physical Therapy. So when we first were there in 2011, originally the handicap spot was on the south side in that corner that you all are considering. I was the one that asked for more handicap, and then that's when they redid that about 5 years ago, and it was approved through the city, obviously, with that request. The additional spots that are reserved for Elite do say on there 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 12 on Saturday, and people park there afterwards all the time. And those spots, you know, I compare the other situation in town. There's the doctor who does the Medi-Spa, which is cosmetic, Botox, whatever the Medi-Spa does, and she has 2 spots for one provider. I've got 8 physical therapists and 100 patients that come there a day.
They're 2 handicap spots? Are they 2 handicap
No,
spots?
no, there are 2 of
Parking
those,
spot.
2 parking reserve spots.
Okay, but not handicap.
No. And I have forwarded, Edward, the videos of patients. This is what is just the most stressful for me, is we use that for caregivers that come in. That's one. This man drives here and he can't stand upright. So he's come to therapy and not had spots when all the workers and the city and the, you know, the beach workers were there. So it's just very concerning if he can't pull up.
Thank you.
Well, I'll second his motion.
I didn't make a motion.
No motion's been
I
made
didn't make
yet,
a
but
motion yet. I just
David,
suggested that was a.
could you just repeat again what your recommendation would be?
So my recommendation, since the city only needs one ADA handicap spot in that perimeter, that corridor from Grenoble north to the side on the other side of the Henlopen, that we would dedicate one of those spots to Elite from 7 to 7. We'd have to hang a sign on it. That way, the city wouldn't have to create another handicap spot. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other ideas.
And the other ask from Elite was to make this 5th spot here also reserved. I just want to make sure that in your recommendation, are you not including reassigning that fifth spot there?
I think she asked for 2 additional ones, didn't you?
I asked for the 2 handicap spots and that additional one just to be reserved because it's not handicapped.
Right.
There would be 3 reserved only during our hours.
I'm sorry, could you just come up to that mic?
There would be 3. We have 2 reserved that are non-handicapped, and there's a 3rd spot right where his arrow is. If we could have that reserved, plus 1 handicap, that would be a huge help for our patients, only during our hours. And they're full from 7 to 7. Patients come in and out all day. And we're out there helping them with the parking and the mobile pay. I mean, that's the other thing. Our patients are 40% Medicare.
Would you just state again how many providers you have and how many patients you see a day?
We have 8 physical therapists, and we see usually over 100 visits a day. We also took over Stuart Kingston, so our original, now we're, the space of the business is close to 9,000 square feet. Any other questions?
I mean, just to state the obvious from my perspective, I don't think we can be out of compliance with ADA guidelines. So based on the research that was conducted, we have to maintain at least 1 parking space handicapped for the general public.
Okay.
So I think that's, from my perspective, like something that we can't negotiate. And then beyond that, the ask would be for one of those 2 handicap spaces to be dedicated to elite, and then
That 3rd,
a 4th spot, total of 4, or a 3rd. So
exactly.
have you thought about perhaps the 2 dedicated spaces that you have, making those for handicapped?
Yes, I have those on reserve. So like I have a plan. If those spots are full and it's everybody has all those spots full and the patients can't come, I leave those 2. I don't want to dedicate them as additional because I don't have backup. We have patients that'll call and say there's no parking, and I have somebody who has a herniated disc that's walking with a walker. I got to have spots. So yes, we do use those spots as backup, but I can't just have all the patients go in there and then they'll always park there. And then when I really need something, I got to make sure that I prepared for the worst case with the pain and the.
And are there no off-street parking spaces that could be acquired or secured? I mean, there's the back of that building.
I purchased one for $900. I'm like,
Okay.
I do everything I can during the season to make sure that we have as much backup as I can. But Grenoble's become like the new Google Street, that there's parking, and we get a lot of day trippers down there now. And, that's what's frustrating, is that there's no bathrooms down there, so they come into the business, and, there's not a lot of restaurants, so it's a very weird street because it doesn't really facilitate people being there, but they're all there.
Does the VIA have dedicated parking?
They do, and they don't give it at all. They will not share it all. They're not a good neighbor.
And
We've
they typically
asked.
have like a chain up. You can't even get into that lot.
Oh, no,
That
and they would
lot
show
is
you,
all-
like, they are hardcore. I mean, they take all the street parking when they have a VIA meeting.
Right.
Well, they have over 200 members.
That's fine. I mean, but I'm treating the towns. I mean, many of those members are our patients, and they park there when they come to therapy.
Kevin,
is there also just one quick question? Sorry. What about? I think the last time you were here, part of your testimony was that like people come and they stay there all day. They are there for, they go to the beach and, 8, 10, 12, whatever hours. Is there any opportunity to make the spaces in that lot like hour limited so that could to facilitate like some turnover? Like, could we make it like a 2-hour lot? Is that a precedence that exists elsewhere in the city?
It is not.
It's not, okay.
Besides 30-minute spots, we, the only other place that is, I think, a shorter time period may be the Grove Park. Is that also unlimited? I think they're all. Yeah, okay, yeah. Right. So they answered from Kevin was that you can always renew, but he believes they're all unlimited spots.
Do you think they're all- How about lifeguards? I've noticed there's dedicated lifeguards parking at the end of streets by the boardwalk. Is that happening there on Grenoble?
It's happening in the gravel. So you know, behind the VIA,
Oh, that's where
there's
they
gravel
park. That's where the-
spots, and
okay,
there's one or two that's dedicated for them there.
lifeguards. Okay. All right, I just wondered if those could be transferred to the other side of, if there were, they could be transferred to the other side of the Henlopen.
Kevin, question, you may know the answer. Does the VIA own that property, or is it leased from the city? I don't know, Commissioner. Okay, the answer was he does not know.
So it comes down to the question, do we make a motion to, I believe we should convert one of those handicap spots and give it to Elite from 7 to 1,900 hours. The question is, do we want to go with a third spot that she's asking for? So I guess we should, do we want to take a vote on it? How do you want to handle that?
Second it. I second it.
Well, I don't think he made a final motion
I didn't make a
yet.
motion yet. So,
There's not a
Say
so
you did.
okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a motion so we can
Say I
end this.
move.
I'm going to make a motion that we convert one handicap spot on the north side of Grenoble to Elite from 0700 hours to 1900 hours and 08 to 1200 hours on Saturday. And then I'll also add an additional spot that is a non-handicapped with the same markings for Elite. That's my motion.
So we have a motion on the floor that would take one of the handicap parking spots on the north side of Grenoble Place and reserve it for Elite Physical Fitness from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. on 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays, and reserve the fifth spot in that chunk of parking spots on the north end, which is a non-handicapped spot, reserve it for the same days and time frame. Do we have a second to that motion? John, do you want to second the motion? Okay, we have a second by John. And just so everyone understands that this would just be a recommendation that goes to the city manager, mayor, and commissioners, and I suspect that it will further be voted on by that body. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, then I'm going to do a roll call vote. Sure. Walter, come on up. Just remember to state your name.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. I'm not trying to come across with negative first, but if you won't pass that, why not make that third space a loading and unloading zone only for Elite? Because you've added a space, which I have no problems. I was around when this first came up. But having an loading and unloading zone will take care of the people with the walkers and stuff like that, because it's unrealistic to think that the second spot is not going to be occupied the whole time that the people are in for their treatments. Thank you.
But Walter, then they can't stay there. They unload and they have to leave.
I'm seeing the new third place being marked. I think by description, I'm seeing a new third place being marked for Elite. I don't care if it's for elite, but it should be for loading and unloading for elite only, not for the hotel or the Kingston people for the same hours. But that's 2+ apart versus 2, because you might not get 3. The city is so concerned about the revenue, but you got to take care of your own.
Yeah. I'm going to respond to that, and if you want to add to it, please do. My understanding is people that are being driven, drop-off is not an issue. They're using that fire zone for drop-off.
That first man is punched over, he drives independently.
Right. So the concern is for people driving, not people that have to drive themselves, not people that are being driven and are being dropped off. Correct? Yeah.
If it's a fire lane, it's always a fire lane. You can't be in it.
Understood, Walter. Any other comment? Okay, then I'm going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Donna Maybury.
Aye.
John Geiger.
Aye.
Chris Galanti.
Aye.
And David Diefendorfer.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion passes, and the recommendation will be sent to the mayor, commissioners, and the city manager. So we'll be in touch. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We skipped over the first agenda item, which was just a general update on some of the projects that recently completed or still underway. Kevin, would you mind just doing a brief update on some of those projects?
In order that they're listed, Rehoboth Avenue resurfacing is still scheduled to happen this fall. Still working with DelDOT on the particulars of where ADA parking spaces are going to go, the work hours, those kinds of things, but still on schedule to happen starting this fall. Silent policeman, the one they had in stock, he put up. We lost another one there at Surf and Lake. They got taken out the other day, so just a constant battle. He'll replace that, and he's waiting for his latest order to come in so he can get the additional one that was approved for Surf and I think Park or Oak, one of those. But that's second location on Surf.
Pennsylvania, I believe.
It could very well be. New spaces throughout the city. So we completed construction of a new accessible space at the end of Wilmington. So that's all done now, marked, striped, and signed and operational. And another one at Baltimore and First, I guess on the north side, also constructed, in place, striped, and signed now, so it's fully operational. We'd added a third one at the west end of Rehoboth Avenue in the 400-ish area, 400 to 500 area, just by striping and then some temporary modifications to the curb line, with the intent that a fully constructed one would be done when they do the resurfacing this fall, under the DelDOT contract, rather than construct that now and then just tear it up and redo it again in the fall. We just said we'll just stripe it now, make it as accessible as we can, and then do the construction piece as part of the Rehoboth Avenue contract. We did finish the curbing at Grove there behind the Royal Farms. That's all done now. We'll do a final inspection out there on Monday. So I think the homeowners are very happy with what it seems to be doing with the traffic flow there and the people not wanting to stop and park there and run into Royal Farms and the like. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. The new pedestrian crossing across State Road is complete, minus the flashing beacons. We're still waiting for the arrival of those. They're expected, they said mid-February, so hopefully any day we'll get those in and installed, and that'll wrap that part of the Phase 1 project up. Phase 2, we proceeded as well, and that's done, the sidewalk connecting 6th Street to State Road, so now you can go from the Circle, Rise Up Coffee, sidewalk all the way down, all the way to the beach, I guess now. So it's all connected with a sidewalk on that side of the street. And that project seemed to go very well. The homeowners association on that corner where we kind of reclaimed some city property and put the sidewalk in, We've helped them with some of that landscaping, so that they were very eager to get the sidewalk in, and also very willing to work with us on how it went, where it was laid out, and moving around some of their shrubbery and some of their plant beds. So that's again going to get finalized out on Monday, and I think that's those are the ones we had kind of ongoing. So a mad rush at the end trying to get them done before the season.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin related to those projects?
Just real quick question, Kevin. I misheard or didn't connect. What is the projected date for the flashing beacons to go in at State and Grove, Munson?
So they were ordered probably 8 weeks ago and had an 8-week delivery. So mid-May, which is kind of now. So we're expecting them at any time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Any day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
Walter wants to talk.
Walter, please.
Thank you, Walter Bringham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. The curbing and the drainage that ended up in front of the Goods residence was nothing close to what was asked for over a year ago. I've got those agenda items. This originally came in as a parking issue behind the Royal Farm Store. Is there going to be signage there to regulate the parking, or signs that vehicles must park off the roadway?
Probably. I haven't been out there to look since final it out on Monday, but certainly there'd be no parking. I think there's a no parking forward of that line already sign out there. But if not, there would be some signage, I'm sure.
But I watched some of it to what we can see because of lack of transparency, my opinion. What was built never came back as a plan to this committee or to the commissioners. This is not close to the.
Is that a
Beacon.
question? Yeah. I mean,
This is not close to the Beacon project. I have the original documents.
okay.
It got done as a public works project, and it will work for drainage for that corner. But it's got nothing to do with the vehicles that were parking on Columbia Avenue and causing the problem, and the vehicles coming around the corner. So what did it cost?
I don't have that number in front of me. I mean, the city manager reports
Maybe
that.
the next time, so you don't have to come back to me, that the
I think you'll
committee
see.
can get the
He gave it in
numbers.
his last city manager's report. He gave the number, the dollar figure. I've seen tomorrow's. You'll see it again in tomorrow's with the project cost. So, yeah. I don't know what to tell you, Walter.
Okay, no, you're doing fine. The, do I remember seeing that you're going to give up a couple parking spaces, proposing in the budget, or excuse me, in the agenda to give up a couple parking spaces at the meeting tomorrow night or tomorrow day?
I'm not familiar with that, so.
I thought I saw that, so is that around the corner from the Rise on Grove
I think that's a discussion here on
That's
this
a
agenda.
discussion for today's meeting.
Right,
for today's?
Correct.
Is it that at Rise?
correct.
Yes, on Grove
First
Street
two-
between Rise and 6th Street.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you very much. The project came up at the Good property, Columbia Avenue. So how is the public to know about these public work projects when they come up to be done? I asked a question earlier and was told it was in the 2020 CDP, extracting what you want when you want to pull something out. What, was that a single source project? And if it was with Adel, I don't care. But was it a single source project? I heard nobody else bid on it.
We issued as a change order to the Adel contract for the state road work.
For the state road work, okay. Did it ever come back to you folks on how it was bid?
It did not, Walter, and I would rely on the city manager to that.
Okay, hopefully that we can rely on hearing that in the future, because otherwise we don't know.
I think what I'm hearing your concern is, your concern is that projects are not always bid out. Is that ultimately what your concern is here?
I'd like to see some transparency. Sometimes there's reason to do it. But Farmers Market Day, before this thing started, I came down Henlopen, past the cemetery, made a left on the Grove, and found 2 Adel trucks parked in the roadway. Because we can be here, our lights are on, we can stay here all day. SB 290, that was the truck number. And I called the police, and Kevin, I went through Margaret, et cetera, and I did stay at the site, and I never saw you show up, Mr. Public Works Director, and the police didn't show up either, and they don't have a right to park on the street. So if they,
Who was parked there?
Adel, the people that got the job, the damnable arrogance of those people. So what happens if they get Rehoboth Avenue? We didn't have any inspection at the Patty Brown house on Grove. They just closed the street off. We had school buses backing in to streets because they had no way around. And there was a better way to do the traffic. So they took everybody down to the flag people, and there was a better way to do it if they'd taken the people from Henlopen Acres, North Shores, North Rehoboth, taken them down Henlopen, Columbia, and sent them to Fifth Street and out Rehoboth Avenue. Because I'm sure the flaggers were a part of it, a significant part of it. There's mandates on how much they get paid these days, and we're not hearing stuff.
Understood, Walter. I will express the concern to the city manager.
I would appreciate, if all due respect, if you would communicate it to the commissioners. If I'm wrong, tell me, but just don't tell the city manager. We ended up with a hell of a mess up here this weekend, or this past weekend, when they knocked out the sidewalk up at the post office, and they finally got it back open for Sunday. And was that a public works project, or was that a part of the building and licensing building permit?
It was part of the hotel project.
But Walter, we're way off the agenda topic
I'm sorry, you don't have
here.
enough time to do this people's business. But so it was it inspected? They literally blocked, they had people walking in the street. And we got the city manager, and finally the chief of police came out, and he overrid the city manager and solved the problem. You don't know what's happening. The commissioners don't know what happened. But I stand by my words. I will apologize if I'm wrong.
All right. Thank you, Walter.
Public works projects, we need to know what's going on.
Thank you, Walter. Kevin, thank you for your updates. Next on the agenda is, I guess you can stay up there, Kevin. We're going to talk about vehicle and pedestrian safety, basically from the traffic circle all the way down to the intersection at Grove and State Road. And it also includes the disposition of 2 parking spaces on Grove Street north of 6th Street. I think I have heard from a couple residents that are concerned about the safety there. Folks that are speeding around the circle and making a right, those that are pulling and making a right out of Rise parking lot, as well as the visibility of folks that are on 6th Street trying to make a left on the Grove. So, and we've heard from members from this committee as well as the public that they're still generally concerned about the safety over in that intersection at State and Grove. So, Kevin, I'm going to let you lead it off with your thoughts on that area.
So it kicked off when we met with the homeowners association about the extension of the sidewalk over there. They brought it to my attention that these are the spots they were asking about. There's 2 as you come around the circle by Rise Up.
Ann's going to pull it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was, I'm looking at it here on the screen. All right, so that wasn't much help. So there it is without the truck or car. Oh, no, I guess there it is. But as you come around the traffic circle onto Grove, heading towards State Road, there was a concern that about these 2 parking spaces here make it tough for the people coming around the circle, as well as the folks coming out of 6th Street. I can go that way. Maybe we can't go that way. As they come out of this intersection and look to the left to see who's coming, the 2 vehicles here. So that's the 2 spots that they brought to my attention, and I suggested that they write a letter to the committee voicing that safety concern, and then y'all can take a look and see what you'd like to recommend to be done.
Thank you. Thoughts from the committee?
And it is hard to see, quite honestly, when somebody's, it'll make it better now that we have that sidewalk where people aren't, walking in the road. Of course, that sidewalk was initially there, but the sidewalk south of that, it'll help, I think. But it is hard to see as cars come around that circle if there's cars parked there. Is there a way, could we eliminate one of the spots? Could we move and keep one? It probably wouldn't help much, because if you eliminated the one by the circle, then you still have a car parking where somebody could come out on 6th Street. But it definitely is hard to see.
Do we gain any parking with the new curbing there on Grove Street? But there is parking for along past 6th Street. How many parking spaces are there?
We didn't lose any. There's probably six or 8. We didn't lose any, didn't gain any. We still had that kind of that same curb line.
I think it'll be much improved with the new curbing because the pedestrians will be off the street. So I think that helps.
Just to be clear, though, next to these 2 particular parking spots, there is and has always been a sidewalk.
Yeah, it's just.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that that's clear.
The other little tricky thing is there's also a driveway right behind this car that enters out right as you come around the circle as well. So, man, it's a tricky little place.
So I live really close to this intersection, go through it a couple times a day, typically either in my car or on foot, and have a lot of friends in the townhouses that are on 6th Street and have had conversations with the residents there about their concerns. I am equally concerned about the visibility issues here, and I think part of what makes this very problematic is that the cars that are parking that are using Rise Up, going to Rise Up, very often park right up to the intersection of 6th Street. And so what can we do to, besides enforcement, to disincentivize people from parking in that area? Is there painting we could do on the curbing to indicate like a no parking zone, or could we put up a sign? I know there are signs along Grove Park on the south side of Grove Park, where Henlopen and Columbia come up, where very clearly say no parking. Could we delineate like where people are supposed to be and where they're not supposed to be? And that point also then goes like to the new area that they've just added the curbs for. I'm friendly with Patty Brown, and I know she's really concerned about the ability to get in and out of her house, and she has a brother who's in a wheelchair, and I want to make sure that we're also protecting that area from like the stop sign at Grove and State to some appropriate distance back, so that people are not gumming up that area and creating a safety hazard.
Right.
I guess my concern is losing 2 parking spaces, and is there any way to compensate for that? Like, what's happening on the other side of Grove? Is there permitted parking on that side too?
Rose.
So is there?
It didn't help.
Lieutenant, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do we have any, are you aware of any, or do you have any data on accidents or any incidents related to those 2 parking spots and visibility coming around the circle? There, yeah. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Lieutenant William Sullivan, Rehoboth Beach Police Department. As far as accidents in that area, I can tell you from my experience, there hasn't been. I mean, there could be close calls, but no real issues with even the traffic circle in that area.
Thank you.
I want to build on what Donna just said. I think parking is a concern, right? You've got a vibrant business there, and it's very close to Rehoboth Avenue. So I think we need to retain the parking spaces, or as many as we possibly can. My issue is that people are parking in an area that's too close to the intersection of 6. And I think that's really where it becomes a safety issue, when you have a large car or a truck that's parked right up to the that intersection, and that people who are coming out of that community can't see.
And just confirm that I don't think that there's marked spaces there, correct? There's no paint striping
There's
for
not.
us.
There's not, and maybe that's the way to do it. Like
Could help.
maybe if we could very clearly like paint in the road, like one spot after another, and then paint the yellow along the curb, and even put a sign that says no parking with an arrow pointing towards 6th Street.
It looks from the picture, it looks like there's a yellow cross-hatched,
That's for the driveway.
that's for the driveway.
Well, the first is to get them off the circle, right?
Right.
To protect the driveway, I guess. And then
Yep.
they've got the driveway markers here.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll try to get on the other side.
So at many intersections around the city, there's a yellow crosshatch, as
The intersection.
at the intersections, just to keep people back from the intersection.
Well,
See, there's no yellow paint at that
So
corner.
like right here.
Yeah.
So they know not to go as far onto the curb. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
And there is a number of feet that you're not allowed to park, right?
So why don't we try something like that and just see if that at least keeps them from pushing up onto that corner.
Yes.
I mean, that's an easy, cheap, quick fix.
Try.
And my recommendation would be to do it right at that corner, and then on the other side of 6th Street, and then on Patty's corner. So do it in 3 places.
And we have to do I don't think we've done her curb cut yet either for her.
Right, by her driveway on the
6th
side.
Street. Yeah, right.
Yes,
So, right, we
Yeah.
could do all those and,
that'd be great.
yeah, see how it helps.
and that would be keeping the 2 spaces, but marking off that they stay away from the corners and creating more space that way.
And I think what
Illusion.
I'm
Yes.
hearing is we would first do this and give it some time and reevaluate whether it's helping.
Along those lines, as you was talking about that, the idea that ran through my mind was if we could mark them as subcompact spaces, those first 2. That would be, and I don't know if we do that in permitted areas. We certainly do that with some of the metered areas. But just getting smaller cars in there would help with the sightline.
Typically, no one pays attention to those signs when
That's
they
my
say
experience,
subcompact.
too.
I mean, it's a great idea, but I'm not sure that's going to do anything.
I recommend we go with the painting
We'll
and
try
then
the corners,
reevaluate.
paint the corners out.
Yeah,
Give them a kind of a stop line to target anyway,
Yeah.
as they approach 6th. And certainly we'll replace them here at the corner of 6th going towards State. And then we got the cutout for the curb cut at the corner. Yeah, just observe, see what happens.
I don't think we actually need to put this as a motion,
we
but
can do
I think you've got a direction from us.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this topic, Walter?
Walter Birmingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. The problem is coming around the circle, people are coming off too fast. There's a lot of people who are not aware of the crosswalk coming out of Rise, but they're coming around and they are further away from the curb than they would normally be. You have I don't know whether that driveway is open for the private residence that's behind Rise, but there's room enough for the 2 cars there if the people would not be so far out into the street. If you wanted to make it safer, you would go to the opposite side of the discharge of 6th Street, that would be on the east side, and knock away those 2 parking spaces so that there would be room for when the cars came out, whether for a right turn going towards Patty Brown's or a left or the traffic circle, to give people to make the radius of the turn. Some of the problems get caused because of the trucks not as frequent as it used to be with the 7-Eleven, but when they stick their nose out there and are unloading, the people have a tendency to get further across the center line, but it's the same line that people are crossing when they come out of the traffic circle. So just thank you for bringing this up, but to do something on the right-hand side, and one of the pictures I showed, the people need to park up against the curb. So one of the pictures showed a vehicle on the east side of Grove, but it was parked 4 foot out into the street. They need to tuck it in so that there's room on the street. They're probably 11-foot travel lanes, but that would let you do it with minimal interruption. I don't know if there is an angled approach to the parking space at the driveway for the private residence. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Any other comments from the committee on this topic? Okay. We're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is to discuss the speed limit on State Road around the elementary school. It was noted in our last meeting that the speed limit around the school is 30 miles an hour on State Road, and it is 25 in the rest of the city. I don't know if anyone had a chance to speak to Chief Banks about any reason why that may be.
I didn't. I was the one that brought it up. As I walk
Right.
around, I see that the speed limit is 25, but it just doesn't make sense to me as it's 30 right there at the elementary school. I don't know of any major crashes we've had or any major instances, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that it's 30 in a school zone and it's 25 in the rest of the town. I did not talk to Chief Banks about it. Lieutenant, do you have any idea why that would be? It's probably it's been there for years. And it's a Del Dot Road, I believe, there as it comes off of Highway 1.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Whose road is that? Who gets to decide on that speed limit? Is that a city prerogative or is that the state?
Well, I would believe it would be Del Dot.
The state owns the road.
Yeah.
And just for the public, the lieutenant signified that he did not know why the speed limit was different. I say we just talk to Chief Banks and perhaps bring this up at the next meeting. Walter, we've got member of the public.
I'll take that for action. I'll talk to Chief before the next meeting.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. The center of that roadway is the dividing line between the county and the city. If it's on the east side, it's City of Rehoboth. It's on the other side, it's in the county area. So if it wasn't for the hour, we could pick up the phone and call Denise at Gravel Hill at the sign shop and she'd tell us what it is. But you're out, it's not a school zone out at that road.
I believe it is. There's a school zone sign there as you come on State Road off of Route 1. You're passing the elementary school. And then there's
The elementary, I don't have that picture in front of me, but I think you're far enough away from the school that it's not a school zone anymore.
I believe
It's a school zone once they, I'll look at it, but I think it's a school zone once they turn onto Stokely Street.
Right, and I think, and I'll take a look again, Walter, thank you. I think there's a school zone sign on State Road as you go past Stokely, School Lane or Stokely Street, one of those two. I'll look at it.
So the property that's where they're selling the cars and all that, that's not in Rehoboth?
That's correct. It's luxury motors at this point in time.
It's a mess. They're parking on the lawn and they have a camper there. It's terrible. That's the state. Okay.
Yeah, okay, we will table that until the next meeting. I'm going to jump over to sidewalk discussion, which is the next item on the agenda. I'll let you start the discussion, David, and I'll pull up your presentation.
All right, thanks. So I brought this idea up to take a look at some of the sidewalks in the city. There's been there's some condition of the sidewalks are in better condition than others. Some we have cracks and whatever. So I walked around the city and took pictures of a bunch of the sidewalks. So I put a short presentation together just to show where we stand. Am I doing this?
You can use the arrows or the...
All right. So there's the agenda. I just have a brief background discussion about the city code, some pictures within the business and the residential district, and what's being done to make the sidewalks safer. I put together a few discussion points and an end state of maybe where we want to end. All right. So the background is briefly, the Homeowners Association and some of the citizens have expressed, concern about the conditions of some of the sidewalks in the residential area and or in the city. They were basically in poor condition, could have trip hazards. There's a lot of trip hazards caused by tree roots, construction, settling, et cetera, and just general lack of maintenance. The business district, there's a few sidewalks that need repair, but primarily within the district, as you'll see from some of the pictures, I believe they're in a little better condition. So the city code, as you can see up there, section 232-1, it basically says if the sidewalk in front of your house is damaged or broken in any way, it's supposed to be repaired. And then the 232-1, the city manager and police department shall at all times keep commissioners informed of any broken or damaged sidewalks. Anyway, all right, so that gives you a little bit of background. I'll go to
Is
my...
anybody enforcing that anymore? Back in the 90s, I had to replace my sidewalk twice, and I think I had about a 1/4 inch up. I got a formal letter, and I was told I had to do it, or the city would do it and bill me. Is anybody doing that right now?
Correct. So I can't answer that question. I also received a letter years ago, about 6 or 8 years ago, that I had a crack in my sidewalk and I needed to fix it.
You did. You got a letter.
I did. We fixed it, and there's another crack because the tree that was there caused the sidewalk to break 3 times. So yeah, as far I don't know whether there's any enforcement now, but it doesn't seem like it. Just from my
But if you got a letter,
well, that was about 8 years ago.
oh,
Yeah.
We had one before.
I think I can safely say that I think when an incident or an issue happens, it may be enforced at that time, but no one is walking around actively looking for problems and issuing letters.
And I'm not necessarily suggesting that here, but I just wanted to kind of show some pictures and kind of document some of the conditions. So I'll go to the next slide. So here's a shot on, you can see the north arrow, and it's on Rehoboth Avenue. This city's done a fabulous job there. That's a trip hazard. They've shaved down the area where the sidewalk is in the brick. That's a way of eliminating trip hazards. And a lot of that in the business districts have been done with a little bit in the residential areas. There's another shot along, go ahead.
Dave, do you know if the city owns the equipment to do that shaving? Does the city staff do that, or do they contract it out?
I believe
we
they
have-
contract it.
Yeah, it's a contractor.
Okay, they don't own the equipment.
Okay.
Thanks.
So there's another shot on the south side of Rehoboth Avenue. You can see the north arrow. They've done the same thing. Here's an area on First Street. We had a hole, and the city did fill that in with some gravel to temporary repair, what I would view. But at least there was some attempt to make it a little bit safer. Here's one that I tragically tripped on, fell down, and I had not been drinking, Kevin. So I fell down and hit the deck. I mean, I caught my foot in that sidewalk. And thankfully, you know, if an older person would have done that, I'd imagine he could have broken a hip or a knee or whatever. But that's on First Street also. So I had to put something in there where the city has done not a great job. Yeah, here's a shot along Scarborough, in the residential district. You know, major trip hazard. It's cracked and it's probably caused by a tree. Yeah, tree roots on that one. Here's just another. We all know these conditions. I don't have that many pictures, but here's another one that's caused by the tree roots. Tragically, trees planted out there happen. Here's one where it's lifted up. This is along Bayard Avenue. This is a major trip hazard. I saw an older gentleman, I believe it was at this spot a couple years ago. He tripped and fell down and square on his face, blood on the forehead. Anyway, here's another one along Bayard. It's the settling and it's the tree roots that cause major. Now here you could actually shave that down, I believe, and make it a little less of a trip hazard. You know, another condition there. And here's another one along Scarborough again. So I just put together a few discussion points. I don't know how we handle it. So do the city employees look around? Do the S&T members? Do we do a combination to help identify some issues? Rehoboth Beach Homeowner Association. We could have a survey of the sidewalks and come up with a course of action. Do we inform the residents a little that they're responsible for this? The city code also talks about if it was broken or damaged. Most of the sidewalks in the residential district are cracked, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily a trip hazard. The trip hazards are the ones that I documented there. So I don't know, do we need to change the city code? Trip hazard, safety hazard, a crack's not going to do anything. It doesn't necessarily have to say you have to fix it right away. Or do we do nothing and keep the status quo? But the end state is really we want the city sidewalks to be safer with less trip hazards. So I think that covers what I did.
Several years ago, this committee had a subcommittee which went out and surveyed every sidewalk in town. The problem was the commissioners were divided about who would pay for it, and it went nowhere. Mm-hmm. But I want to say one other thing. It doesn't take much to trip people. I was walking just down the street recently, and a woman tripped and fell right in front of me. So I looked at the sidewalk. It was up about that much on one side. Yeah. So it doesn't take much.
Correct. Just like that hole I tripped on.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. But I mean, it would take a lot of effort to identify all the areas that need to be fixed, and the public probably wouldn't be too happy because there'd be a lot of sidewalks that need to be fixed. But I think something has to be done to attempt to try to fix some of these sidewalks in the residential district. It's primarily in the residential district where we have lots of trees. And that's really all I had. Anybody else have any comments? Or
Kevin, do you have any comments on this?
I don't really have any comments other than it's a constant battle trying to, you weigh that, you go down this. I'll give you an example. So last year we did the water main replacement on Norfolk, right? So beforehand, we went right down the street, pointed out all these homes that really should do their sidewalks or needed their sidewalks or curbs, and gave them the opportunity to have it done. We would do it at our contract price and bill them. You can count the number of people out of the 12 or 13 that needed to have something done. Maybe 4 or 5 took advantage of the opportunity. One I know was sent 2 or 3 different letters and has still not said, well, you're too expensive, I'll do it myself. And we're a year later and right, still no sidewalk. Yeah.
So who sent the letters?
Building licensing, our building code enforcement. And we'll try that again. This year when we do Laurel, we'll send letters out saying, hey, this is an ideal opportunity to fix your sidewalk curb. But a lot of people just figure it's not their responsibility or don't want it to be their responsibility.
And clearly in the code, it actually is, right?
It is.
It
clearly.
is.
And then they say, well, that's not my tree, that's your tree, and whose roots caused the problems. I mean, so we hear all those kind of excuses and arguments as to why they don't need to fix something, but, yeah. So. But yeah, I mean, certainly the homeowners association made a pretty strong case that we need to do a better job throughout the city of enforcing that. So
Right.
I think it has become an issue that we're spending more time looking at.
Okay. Yeah.
Thoughts from other committee members?
Thanks for putting the presentation together. I learned a few things. And I think at a minimum, raising awareness of responsibility around the sidewalk is an important thing. I don't know that we can force necessarily homeowners to take action. You know, I think raising awareness, though, is an important first step, because I think that there are people who will take advantage of, you know, milling down. I mean, I'm just sort of thinking about the 2 trees in front of my house. You know, we should do something about that because there's a little gap there. So,
I mean, I guess it could be a liability issue in theory,
Yeah,
right?
that-
So if I'm responsible for maintaining my sidewalk and somebody trips and falls and busts their head open, gets a concussion, they could probably sue us or sue me. So
not probably, definitely.
definitely. Thank you.
Definitely.
So they definitely could sue us because it's in the code.
I
So
think they could sue the city too for not
Probably
enforcing.
both.
maybe, but it's in the code that the homeowner is responsible. So anyway.
So it may make sense for David, perhaps you and I, to put together a little something and ask the homeowners association to send it out, ask Lynn to include it in our next city newsletter, just about sort of the facts about sidewalks, who's responsible for them, and the need to keep them in good condition so people don't trip and fall.
And maybe just a comment or something to the board going, hey, we agree with what the homeowner association said the other day, and we'd like you to make it an area of influence or an annual of attention, that you want to spend a little extra attention from staff or whomever to point of emphasis to go and do a better job of looking at it. But then also let the homeowners know that
I'm pretty sure I can show you some.
there's an
places
associated cost
Worse
with
than
that
your
as well.
worst picture.
I'm sure there are.
Walter, any comments on this topic?
Within the past 2 years, Walter Birmingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. Within the past 2 years and 4th of July and the construction and the lack of enforcement with the porta potties and everything on the sidewalk south side of town and interrupted sidewalks, et cetera, I would warn you that you shouldn't go out with the foot of an elephant right now and ask to have a lot done. You got so many people using the sidewalks, you should not be forcing people in the street like the city so willingly did this past week. But there ought to be a plan and encourage people maybe to do it in the fall and have building and licensing take an aggressive approach and be sure that when you shove people out into the street, that's not where they park the construction trucks. Because then you force the people out around the construction trucks and there's no safe place for the people to walk. You need to have some barricades, not cones, something and tell the people that are doing the work, if it's an outside contractor, to park across the street so that the people have a safe place to walk, because Rehoboth doesn't close anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. If there's nothing else on this topic, I'm going to skip the next topic. Is about shrubs and plants blocking visibility of pedestrian and vehicular movement, both in public and on private property. This is something that David Mann, I think, asked for, and I actually, you did.
Yeah.
And I particularly would like the arborist to weigh in on this discussion. So I was going to pawn it off to the next meeting, but John, if you want to start discussion on it now, that's perfectly fine.
No, not now.
Okay. So I will ask the city arborist to be here at the next meeting to join in that discussion.
Can we please talk about it for 30 seconds?
Sure, come on up, Walter.
I call her Queen Elizabeth because she does what she damn well pleases. But that's not in fairness to the Queen deceased. Walter Brittingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. May I approach? May I approach?
Sure, just make sure that if you're speaking in a microphone.
This morning, I went down to the roundabout and I carried a ruler and I measured the height of the roses from the roadbed on East and West Rehoboth Avenue, 55 inches. I went down to Fifth Street, came back out, went to the Royal Farm Store in the city parking lot and measured the height of the bushes and the trees there. This is 55 inches. You're riding in your car. None of you can see what's happening. And it's totally in control and has been of Liz. And they need to be cut down. You talk about it every year. I have a copy of the 22 April minutes. They were there. You could just take it every year and bring it back up and put it there. The bushes and trees need to be cut down. If you're in a higher vehicle, maybe you can see over it, but if you're in a sedan or a low car, you can't see. So they come around the roundabout and they get ready to go up by Suzanne and Jeffrey Goods, and you can't see what's backing out of the parking space at the Royal Farm Store.
Thank you, Walter, and let the record reflect that Mr. Brittingham, to demonstrate 55 inches, is holding a standard-sized broom. So we will have this on the next meeting. Walter, if you want to stay next to the microphone, the next thing on the agenda is to talk about safety concerns, specifically at the intersection of Grove and Columbia, and the parking spaces, the city parking spaces adjacent to the Royal Farms. This is something that Mr. Brittingham has raised in the past, and it is before us today for discussion. Walter, if you'd like to give a brief overview, and then I'll turn it over to the committee members to discuss further. Do you want the
Yes,
projector
please.
on?
Yes, please. Walter Brittingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. I have taken a picture, passed it in previously. To
Walter, if you just want to arrange that so we can see it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Just make sure you're speaking.
The
in-
red mark delineates a car parked behind the Royal Farm Store at its northwest corner. I'm going to point to something and come back to the microphone. That is the corner of the property at the Royal Farm Store. The parking on the back of the Royal Farm Store as it runs parallel up Columbia Avenue is all right away on the city. When vehicles come around the roundabout, around the bushes where they can't see, and a vehicle backs out from, we used to own the property, the dairy store, but the Royal Farm Store, they back into the traffic that's hauling ass around the trees and bushes that they can't see past. So since it's on the city, an easy way to solve the thing, we had some clues, but nobody liked my idea. Back when we were talking about parking on Columbia Avenue, putting some Jersey barriers, but our previous mayor, who I won't mention his name, he went down there and said, make it no right or no left turn. But the people come out of the back of that city parking lot and they pull up a little bit and make a left turn, and we've just been lucky that we haven't had any, to my knowledge, T-bones happening there when the people come down the street. the city has a perfect right to go in there and mark that off, make it no parking, make it not parkable, and make that piece of street safer. And I'll take a question if anybody's got any, but it's pretty clean, cut, and simple. And it's been that way, and they put up signs, they extended the curb, and people drive right over the curb, and there's just a better way to do it. And it shouldn't have to wait another year to do it. You could go down there and put a Jersey barrier at the end of the raised curb to force people to go straight and out into the right-of-way to make a U-turn if they wanted to go back towards the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Comments from the committee?
I'm sorry, I was following a lot of that, but I want to be really clear. What exact spot are you referring to that should be, that you are asking to be no parking?
The spot where the red,
Yeah.
the back corner of the sidewalk at the Royal Farm Store is the corner of the property.
So that is a,
That red spot is a vehicle, and they pull in and park there. 10 open acres patrol and everybody, they don't care whose car they're driving. They pull in there and they back out, and it's dangerous.
Are you saying that's, is that currently a parking spot right behind the store? Or
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and it's marked off for parking? So
No, ma'am. None of them are marked.
Anna, could you bring up the computer?
Google Maps. Yeah.
Walter, do you want to
Could you
point
zoom
on
in a
the
little
screen?
bit on that?
This is the city parking lot.
Oh, yeah, sure. Walter, if you want to,
Yeah.
are you, do I need to zoom
No,
in over
If you
on
could
here?
zoom in on that a little bit.
And you use the mouse to point.
Yeah, because nobody can see you going over to the screen, and I need for you to be seen on the camera.
Okay. I've got the mouse where Walter is referring to. Right here?
Right there.
Yep.
Thank you. Chris, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that view right there is perfect. That helps a lot. So where the bicycle is, the motorcycle, your recommendation is that we,
My eyes aren't that good, I can't see it, but it's that corner spot immediately to the left of the do not enter sign.
Yeah, it is the
there's a
spot where the
motorcycle,
bu-
in the
yep.
picture, there's a motorcycle there. Okay.
But it's not marked off for parking, but people still pull in and park there.
It looks like a parking space to
Oh,
me.
There's a door.
Yeah, I believe it is a,
I'm gonna draw a line to show you the property line.
Walter is indicating that this is the property line right here.
Well, which property is city property there? You keep saying the city owns part of that.
In negotiations, Mayor Cooper at the time, when Streetscape, they somehow negotiated in order to leave these people in business. I think Stan Thompson and people like that owned it at the time. But that's a city lot. They have signs up there that says they can tell you they shouldn't. But that's all city lot to the right of the corner of the sidewalk, right where the yellow post you see bent out into the
in the back of Royal Farms toward Columbia. So
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
that area you're saying city lot, not the parking lot
Right,
around.
right away is approximately 15 foot from the edge of the roadway. Right away, city property.
But the Royal Farms parking on the other side by Rehoboth Avenue, is that a city lot too? Is that city property also?
The front of, the outside of the sidewalk at the front of the building is about 15 foot out.
And is that city?
In front of the sidewalk at the front of the building, the property line is about 15 foot out. I used to clean it, wash it, pick it up every morning. We know it well, but we cleaned all the way to the street. At one point in time, Rehoboth Avenue used to come right straight down Rehoboth Avenue in front of the dairy store.
You're saying this lot in the back, the city, that's a city parking area?
I would
City
allude to
controls.
you that that car that's sitting there on the right-hand side's on the roadway, ma'am, headed towards the ocean.
So Walter, for my notes, let me get this straight. So where the motorcycle is, just to the left of the do not enter sign,
Mark it off.
you're suggesting, say, mark it, no parking, et cetera.
Put a Jersey barrier there to force people
Right.
not to be allowed to make a U-turn.
So that's what I was asking. Where do you suggest the Jersey barrier to be? Going east to west? Right.
As you come out of the side of the Royal Farms store, and it says no left turn, as you proceed right along the right-of-way, you would have a 8-foot Jersey barrier there to force the people not to be allowed to make a left turn. That would give them visibility, and in addition to cutting down the bushes so that people could see something moving, the same type bushes are there as where you cross to Wise, the Rise coffee place. They need the bushes down, and people need to be able to see. But a person in that car would on the right side of that car, as I look at it from here, they could not see over those bushes to see that somebody was backing out.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Any thoughts?
Part of it. So,
I would agree that that is a very tricky dynamic there between the parking, the roundabout, Columbia Road, the private homes across the street. It's a bad sort of mixture of functions. And I don't know if we have any statistics on accidents in that area. Any? We're not aware of any.
The nod is
The nod
no.
was a no. Yeah.
I concur with what you're saying with Walter, that it is a dicey area, and especially the shrubbery, because as people are coming, or making that turn around the circle and onto Columbia, the bushes are in the way, and you can't see what's happening at that corner. So certainly lower those bushes or take out some of them. And if there's people are parking in a non-parking spot, and painting that out would make it safer. I would support that. We're not losing parking.
Don't we have to confirm 100% that that's not private property? I mean, where that line is?
Yes.
Yes.
I think if this conversation is going to go any further, that needs to be confirmed. So why don't we, I think we'll take some homework away from this. I think everyone should go walk this area on your own. I'm going to talk to building and licensing and see if we can get a survey of that area. And I also, at the next meeting, I think we'll have the Chief Banks with us, as well as the city arborist in a related topic about the bushes and other shrubbery. So I suggest we table it until all of that happens. at our next meeting.
One other thing I might contribute is I did go look at it, and the day I went to look at it was right around noon. And I thought this was going to be part of the issue there, because when I was there, there were like 4 rigs, landscaper rigs, with the trucks, with their big trailers. There were 4 that were pulled in there and parked right at the back of the lot, you know, along Columbia, but blocking in the cars parked at Royal Farms, and then on the other side of Columbia too. And I talked to the guys. I said, well, you know, what's going on, or what is this? Well, it's just a lot of landscape guys. That's one place where they can come in town to pull in and to get fast food. So they frequently go there. So it's very congested, and they kind of park along Columbia there, and it looked like people were staying in the cars and the trucks, that they could move them if need be. But and I think the Goods had referred to this kind of congestion too with their street. But that's what's happening there around at that area at noontime. But all the more reason to do the things that Walter was suggesting, especially cutting down the shrubs and making visibility better, and because there's a lot of traffic there at noon.
Agreed. Okay, so we've got action to some homework, and we'll table it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I like your idea of the survey too, but I'm wondering if the city probably doesn't have that already. Statistics on that, exactly where the city property is. And
Oh, I'm sure we do.
if we could find that.
Sending that email as we speak. Next on the agenda is the use and safety of electric bicycles and other similar modes of transportation. David, I think this was a you topic, no?
It was actually
Oh,
a Chris topic.
It was a Chris topic, so
Yeah.
I'll let you do a little, we've got about 5 minutes. I'll let you do just a little preface.
Yeah, I've noticed a proliferation of the use of e-bikes across the city. They look like a lot of fun. I've never been on one before. We now have digital readers on Munson, so I have the advantage of seeing how fast people are going. I recently saw somebody on an e-bike go 46 miles per hour down my street. I also am a
What street was that?
Munson Street, 300
Oh,
block.
gosh.
They were kids and they were having a good time, but like it's obviously a reckless situation. I have also noticed a lot of bicyclists on the boardwalk, and that's really where I'm raising the issue.
Electric bikes on the boardwalk.
Bikes on the boardwalk, and I don't know where our jurisdiction ends and the boardwalk committee jurisdiction begins, but that feels like a topic that we should be bringing up for discussion. I have seen more and more e-bikes on the boardwalk, and I have a concern with it. You know, I mean, if you have a bicycle, right? And I use that word loosely because it's more like a motorcycle in my mind, right? That can go 30, 40 miles per hour, and you're mixing that with pedestrians. I think we're gonna have a problem at some point. I think we're setting ourselves up, unless we get some sort of regulation, some sort of standards on the usage, we're gonna have some problems. So
So you're concerned about their usage on the boardwalk and what? Any other
use on the boardwalk, that's really where I want to focus.
Okay. Are we having any problems with parking with them, or?
I haven't
anything?
noticed that. I'm not, no, that's not been an issue from my perspective. Maybe it is. But I mean, the size of the e-bikes is almost identical to a regular bicycle. I mean, there's very little motor to it. In fact, like you can often look at one and mistake it for a regular bicycle. And I think that's why people are getting away with using them on the boardwalk. I mean, mopeds are not allowed on the boardwalk. Motorcycles are not allowed on the boardwalk, but they have the same end result in terms of function, in terms of the speed that they're going.
Yeah. How about, what are the state parks doing? Or what are they doing on the bike trail? Have they made regulations for that?
I know that is a topic of discussion. You've got the bike path that goes up to Lewis, and I have read articles or letters to the editor in the Cape Gazette about it, where it's become a safety concern. And so I know other jurisdictions and communities are grappling with it. What the end result has been, what the decision has been, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I just wanted, that could give us some guidance. But or often what they'll do is no motorized vehicles. They'll make that distinction, and maybe seems like that's what you're suggesting.
I think there is a sign on the bike trail, no motorized vehicles.
Uh-huh, okay.
Motorized.
Speaking of these new vehicles, the one that throws me and gives me concern are the ones that they stand on, the one-wheelers and the motorized scooters. Like, I see more of those around town where I just see a person just flying by the street, and I'm not even aware that they're on a vehicle. And here, it's a motorized scooter. And also, I've seen it with they call them just one-wheelers, where they're like Segways without handlebars.
There's also motorized skateboards now. I saw
Yeah.
somebody go down the street the other day with a motorized skateboard. And I know what you're talking about, those one-wheelers.
Skateboards as a whole are not allowed in Rehoboth.
Yeah.
We don't allow
really?
skateboards.
Okay.
And, we've had people come in here and say, well, that's how I get to work.
I'm going to ask Kevin to wrap this up with
I was just going to make one
thoughts.
comment on the e-bikes. When they talk about motorized things not allowed on the state park bike trails, and like the e-bikes, it's kind of tricky because they are also self-pedal. So you can pedal it when you want and then engage it going uphill or whatever. So I don't think they've been successful at keeping them off of the state bike trails because it can also be it has a motor on it, but it's not being motorized at the time, quote unquote. So I know
right,
that's
we-
a tricky one to talk about.
Sure.
I went to the home show that they had recently had at the high school, and right in front of the front door were the electric bikes, and they were demonstrating them and so on. And that company then said they had a rental place in Lewis. I don't know where. I don't know if we have a rental in. We ought to have our bike man here.
With that, we'll continue discussion at the next meeting, and I may specifically ask Frank Cole to maybe come
That would be good.
to the next meeting on that
Yes.
discussion. I'm going to ask if there's any future agenda topics that you all want to consider. Any final comments from the committee members? Then I'll ask for any final comments from the public, and there is none. So I will call this meeting adjourned at 4:20.